All right, welcome to another episode of Off the Carousel. And today, this might be my favorite one. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna be honest here. I've known this guy since we both broke into the industry. Um, Russell Springmann, head coach, Oral Roberts. It it brings a smile to my face. I'm not gonna lie. Saying the word head coach with Russell Springmann, it's been a long time coming. You and I have known each other since I just broke in as a recruiting guy. You were recruiting all those young dudes uh, for Rick Barnes at University of Texas, and now you're the head coach at Oral Roberts. First of all, how does it sound? How does head coach sound? Because again, it's been a long roller coaster-ish ride to get here.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I really haven't had a chance to absorb what it sounds like. It's been full speed ahead since I received the opportunity to take on the job. So I really haven't had a chance to just take a step back and evaluate that. I mean, there's days where I certainly feel the difference and the change with the responsibilities and different things that, in all honesty, Jeff, I wouldn't have been able to prepare for, right? Some things you can prepare for, and other things you get through it as they come your way. But really, during the press conference, it hit me pretty hard. I mean, I teared up thinking about my past and with my wife and some of the things that we've experienced along the way, and that was really when it hit me the most about being a head coach and just being provided this opportunity by God's grace. Like to go from being out of the business to wondering, am I ever going to have an opportunity to coach again, to being back in the business. Always thankful and grateful for Paul Mills for giving me an opportunity to 5 years later, at the age of 53, being granted a head coaching opportunity in an unbelievable place. It's just been amazing, Jeff.
Yeah, for people that don't know your story, again, when you were young, you were considered, one of those up and coming assistants, right? The hot assistant. You turned down several jobs, one of which was Mississippi State for a lot of money, especially back then. You
Yeah.
talk about, it's $1 million a year. And you said, you know what? It's not right for me and my family. And everybody thought you were nuts. Rick Barnes included, thought you were a little nuts. And it kind of changed your relationship a little bit. And I don't want to put words in your mouth here, but it definitely changed the relationship with Barnes a little bit. And you guys went your separate ways. You go, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong on the history of this, but I think San Diego first, a couple of years as an assistant. So you go from Texas, high major, flying, private, all of this, to San Diego, which isn't a bad place. Listen, I'd like to live in San Diego, but you're not making the same money. You're not traveling the same way. You're not eating the same way, all that. And then you leave San Diego and you're out. And Sam Presti, the GM of Oklahoma City, who you've known forever, throws you a bone. And I don't know what you were making, but it wasn't a lot as a scout at Oklahoma City. What was that like? I guess when you're at Oklahoma City as a scout, are you thinking it's over at this point? I'm probably not going to get back into college.
Well, I'll back up if it's all right.
Yeah.
When I did say no to the opportunity at Mississippi State, it was because I was concerned about the impact that would have on my marriage. I did not want to take a chance on it causing a potential major problem in my marriage. And it wasn't worth it to me to take a chance. And like people ask about, who's the best you've recruited? Kevin Durant, DJ Augustine, Max Asmus. And I'm like, have you seen my wife?
And
Right?
I
No,
have met your wife, so I can say you outkicked your coverage.
no question, man. I overachieved again by God's grace. So I did not want to take a chance. And I understood Coach Barnes being frustrated with me because he always wanted us as assistants to be head coaches. So when I had an opportunity like that, which was not normal for an assistant coach to be granted an SEC head coaching opportunity, I do understand why he was frustrated. And, you know, when you're at Texas, the thought is you're going to be there. And then when a good opportunity presents itself, you're going to take it and move on from there. And like that coach has every right to have that expectation. And, you know, I didn't meet that expectation. So I end up at San Diego. And then again, as you mentioned, Sam Presti gave me an opportunity because I was out. I didn't know what I was going to do. Um, and that opportunity was really eye-opening in a lot of ways. I looked at the game differently. Um, the way that they evaluate players really opened my eyes. How thorough they are with gathering information made me think I've really not done a good job in recruiting in terms of learning as much as I could. But to finish where you finished, I really didn't think I would be able to get back into college coaching. And I was honestly, Jeff, fighting like heck to make sure I had an opportunity to stay on with the Thunder for another year because, you know, you're year to year in a lot of those situations. It's not this, hey, we're going to hire you. And as long as you don't, you know, put yourself in harm's way, then you got a job until you decide to retire. It's year to year. And, you know, again, by God's grace, I was granted the opportunity to be there for another year. But Coach Mills presented an opportunity to come here and coach, which really was an answer to prayers. I'd asked God, look, if I'm meant to get back into coaching, please allow it to include, and I won't go through the list, but it was a list of things that would fit our family, right? Like fit my wife, our children. And I kid you not, Jeff, I remember pulling into our driveway and it hit me, you know, like this is an answer to my prayer, all of it. I mean, all of it, the people, because that was, you know, a big thing for me, the situation for our children, a fit for my wife, literally all of it. And it wasn't like I heard this audible voice, but it was this feeling that made me stop. And it was like, do you remember your prayer? And at that point, I was like, thank you, God. And, you know, again, by his grace, I have the opportunity that I have now.
Yeah, it's funny that it came from a Baylor guy, you know, right? I mean, hey, I remember standing there with you when you were at Texas, and it was almost like, hey, you know, if I went over and then talked to the Baylor guys, it was almost like taboo. Like you almost had to pick sides between Texas and Baylor
You
in
know
the
what?
staffs back then.
You know what? The amazing thing was, and I remember saying this at Texas, was they were a pain.
Yeah.
And I mean that as a compliment because their staff and Scott Drew were so visible. And I mean that like
They were
obviously
out of
physically,
control.
but
Yeah, they
also
worked so hard, so
yeah,
hard.
I mean, like they got Baylor spelled out on their shirts where you can barely fit the letters on the front of the shirt. They're
Yeah.
wearing neon colors. But they honestly put a ton of pressure on us at Texas, and that that was a problem. You know, they did a great job, and then I mean, shoot, Jeff, I would think I was getting ahead by calling on an eighth grader after like the 14 and unders back in the day in Orlando, and I'm finding out where does the kid go to high school. I'm calling the high school coach to learn about the kid, and Baylor's already been on the kid. You know, and that's
Yeah,
when
yeah.
for me I learned like these guys, like it's a different level of relentless, but it was again on the other side it was irritating because it's like, all right, you think you think you're getting ahead, you're not. You think you're working hard, you're not hard enough, you know. And as time went on, and I vividly remember this. We were playing them at home, and they had a possession where between Rico Gathers and Torian Waller Prince, I think they got 4 offensive rebounds on one possession. And I remember thinking the tide has turned because that used to be us doing that to them, and now they're doing that to us. But anyway, um, those guys have been incredible to me. And I mean, Coach Drew, when we were let go at Texas, you know, he reached out and I didn't have his number in my phone. I'm getting ready to get on a plane to go to Indianapolis. I'll never forget this. and it's a 254 number. I'm literally getting ready to board, and I thought, I don't know who this is. Well, then I get off the plane and I see I've got a voicemail, and I play it, and it's Coach Drew. And, he was just offering any assistance that he could provide, saying he wanted to help me. And I thought, that's kind. That's, what some people do, but some people do it, but they really have no intention of trying to help you. So he called again. And, I remember just responding with a text, I believe, I'm sorry. In between calls, I texted him, "Hey, Coach, thanks for your call. Really appreciate it." That wasn't enough for him. So he called me again, and he said, "I want to help you." And I thought, look, we never worked together. We actually were in the same league competing against each other. And I believe it speaks volumes to who he is as a human being. Like, this guy was sincere, and then picked up the phone to call other coaches to genuinely try to help me,
Right.
So
He
I've got
knew
to have
you.
some
Yeah, I
respect.
mean, listen, he knew your character, and like you said, for a competitor like that who you didn't really have much of a personal relationship with, to do that when you're at
Oh, it's
your
unbelievable.
lowest, yeah, your lowest moment, it means a lot because
Oh,
when
yeah.
you're out, how many people stuck with you, right? When you're out that year, how many calls are I remember talking to you that year,
Oh, yeah.
and we talked about that. Like, you find out who your, I guess, your real friends are
Mhm.
when you're at your lowest point and you need help and you're out of the game and you can't help anybody, right? You
Yep.
can't help anybody then.
Yep. No, you're right. I mean, it's interesting what you learn as you go. Like, you win a big game, and you get, who knows how many text messages or phone calls, and um, then you're out, and some of them again are that initial, "Hey, man, I'm happy to help you," or whatever. Um, and I do think a lot of people mean what they say at the time, and it's hard because you don't know how to help. And then there's some that really dig in and help. I mean, Jeff, I was blessed to have friends that were, in all honesty, it was like having representation. Like, those guys were fighting like heck. Anytime there was something that might open, I was getting a call or a text message. And, in all honesty, I've never forgotten those guys. And it was a handful. I'm blessed to have, those people as friends. And, it everybody's got a story, and I think there's something for us to always remember is, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what your story is. I don't know what chapter you're in at that time, but everybody's going through something. And, after going through some things, I really try to be mindful of that, is like, what's that person's story right now? What's going on in their life right now? And then the other part is, can I help? Right? Like, because I know, back to Sam Presti and Paul Mills, um, and
Yeah.
I tell people this, it only takes one person,
Yep.
right? Like, you might hear, "No, hey, I'm sorry. I need a younger guy," whatever you might hear, but it only takes one person. It took Sam Presti to say, I'm going to help you. And, he kept me in a game. And not only did he keep me in a game, he taught me a ton. That whole organization taught me a lot. I am so thankful and grateful for that time. I mean, Paul Mills, it took one person to give me a second chance, and that's something else. I think that I know in the past I've probably been quicker to criticize than I should be, right?
Actually,
But,
I really don't think that's you. I've never
well,
thought that's you.
I think at times you can sit there and go, like, why would they do that, or why would they say that, or whatever. And in all honesty, Jeff, I think, um, and I don't know what your whole story has been, but I would argue at some point somebody probably gave you a second chance,
No
right?
question. Yeah.
And I think we have to be willing to do that for others, right? Because there's too many times where that's what somebody needs, and maybe they mess some things up the first time around, but I think sometimes we act like it's permanent instead of, you know what, they probably learned from
Listen,
that.
I just said that, Russ, about Bob Huggins. And
Mhm,
obviously he made a huge mistake saying
mhm,
a word you do not say, and
yeah,
it's not acceptable. But I've said this about people, like, especially a guy like Hugs. you know Hugs' reputation within the industry.
Mhm.
It's amazing, right? Like everybody, Bob Huggins will help anybody and everybody. He's
Yep.
good for the game. He's good for players. He's good for coaches. He's screwed up. Does that mean he doesn't deserve a second chance because he's in his late 60s? Does that mean he can't learn from his mistakes? Of course he can. Like he built up enough equity over the course of his career that he shouldn't be canceled based on now he's paying the price. For some people, it's not enough, right? Getting suspended, getting a pay cut, whatever it is. But ultimately, is this how Bob Huggins should go out based on one word that he said? I just, again, I feel like you're getting at, everybody deserves a second chance. We shouldn't just because somebody makes now there's different levels of mistakes, obviously. There's certain things that, hey, you know what, you're gonna have to pay a price for a while and show me you deserve a second chance. But I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I think, again, I did hear it's funny because you say that, and you and I, again, this is such a weird interview to do because it's like therapy in a way. We've had these conversations over the years. You know, people don't know. You and I used to have lunch every year at the Peach Jam. I forget the name of the place right next to the hotel, and you turned me on to
I
sweet tea. I never knew sweet tea before you.
Oh, sweet tea is the best thing ever. But I think
But at
that
San Diego, you were down. I had heard this from a
mhm.
couple people while you were at San Diego as an assistant that it was a hard adjustment for you, and you might have become more negative there. I don't know.
I think for me at San Diego, the initial challenge was, just the situation in terms of our team, right? I had gone from a situation where we were highly competitive. And I mean, shoot, Jeff, we went to 16 out of 17 NCAA tournaments. So to go from that into a complete, in my mind, rebuild was a transition that I just hadn't experienced before. And there were things that happened along the way that were challenging for me. So professionally, my eyes were opened in a way that they hadn't been before. Right, uncharted territory, different level, different feel in the gym, and I don't. I believe I'm a positive person, so I don't think I was negative. I was adjusting to like what is going on here, you
It's new.
know,
Yeah,
and
completely.
yeah, and it was so different. And part of the other thing was, and I don't mean this disrespectfully to anybody, was I'd been with Coach Barnes for 17 years, right? So there was a way that the gym felt, there was a way that that the program was run that I had become accustomed to for such a long period of time. And I think that was the other adjustment for me was, well, I shouldn't say there were others, but that was one of them was, here I am for the first time in 18 years and in an environment that is just different, you know. And I do think this oftentimes when you do make a change that first, I don't know if it takes a full season, but it does take some time to adjust, right? And it did take me, I believe, a full year to go, okay, all right,
Where am
this,
I?
this is different. Like, all right, like now, okay. And I had a friend of mine tell me, look, hey, from a recruiting standpoint, it's going to take you a year in a new league to have an understanding of what you really need
Sure.
to be successful in that particular league. And I thought, no, like again in my mind, like, no, it's not. I'll be able to figure it out. And that was a stupid thought on my part. The guy was right. Like, you know what? You got to go through the conference. And I mean, obviously Gonzaga's Gonzaga, BYU's BYU, St. Mary's is St. Mary's. But he was right. And I do think there's that level of transition. And like Jeff, I want to be great. I don't want to just have a job. I want to be great at what I do. And that frustrated me. Like, all right, I'm still learning. I should know. Right.
Yeah.
So I think if anything, I was just hard on myself and trying to figure things out that I honestly felt like I should know this
Yep.
instead of it took time for me to figure it out. I don't know if that makes
Yep.
sense.
No, completely, completely. All right, let's move forward.
All right.
You get the job, and you got a star that you recruited in Max Asmus. That's the guy you brought in. He's
Yeah.
been, I mean, like the cornerstone of this program. What he's done is ridiculous. Um, and he comes to you after you get the job and he says, "Hey, coach, I love you and all, but like all these high majors are coming after me. I'm gonna give it a shot. I haven't done it for the last few years when I could have, and
Mhm.
everybody's probably been poking around at him since he took you guys to the Sweet 16, and he's loyal and he
Mhm.
stays with you guys. You finally get your chance to be a head coach, and Max is like, "Hey, coach, I'm sorry, man, but I'm doing this thing. I'm going to ultimately." And I'm going to Texas. That's hey, that's the funniest part of all this is the kids going to Texas. Didn't even hit me until we're talking just now. Um, what what was that like? Because again, the times have changed. You know, obviously years ago, this isn't happening. Now this is commonplace.
Well, I think the main thing is Max graduated. And not only did he graduate, he graduated at a high level. And I mean, nobody here, whether there was a coaching change or not, thought Max would come back for a fifth year. And, like, I think what happens is it's looked upon differently when it's you, right? But a grad transfer happens a lot. And Max did so many incredible things here. I mean, I don't have time to list all of the
Yep.
things that he accomplished here. And you know what was asked of me initially was, "Hey, are you going to ask him to stay?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I'm going to say thank you." And that's exactly what I did. I called him, and I did the same thing in the past. I wanted to sit down with him face to face and find out two things. How do you recommend we get better in this program? How do you recommend that I get better at helping you? So, same conversation. I called him and I said, "Hey, I'm going to tell you on the phone, I want to get together with you for lunch tomorrow, but it's to do nothing except say thank you." That's it.
Yep.
So, we went to Oklahoma Joe's. We sat down and had barbecue. And I said, "I want you to see my face when I say this to you. Thank you, because you are amazingly loyal. You could have left after the Sweet 16, you stayed. You could have left again and you stayed. And the truth is this, not only with our athletic department have things changed dramatically in a positive way, in large part because of the impact that he's had, so has the university. Jeff, there's been money raised that has allowed growth on this campus. Enrollment has gone up. And I would argue, maybe ignorantly, but I would argue that he and his teammates have been responsible, I'll just be kind, for a decent amount of all that has happened. So, in addition to that growth, the renovations to our arena, the fact that we have a brand new performance center, I would say the same thing. So to me, to do anything else besides say thank you is crazy. And then I also told him I wouldn't have this opportunity if it wasn't for you.
Very true.
So my family and I are thankful to you and your family because again, he could have left. And they told me that when he put his name in the draft, I called, talked to his mom, and I said, "Hey, just from a recruiting standpoint, I'm trying to figure things out." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, if Max ends up leaving," and she said, "Coach, he's got two choices. He's either going to be a first round draft pick and he keeps his name in the NBA draft, or he's returning to Oral Roberts.
Wow.
There is not another option."
Wow.
So to have that type of loyalty
Yep.
in a family as well as a young man, I think we need to say thank you. And so that's all I ever did.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I don't know him well, but I've talked to him a few times, and he just seems like the highest of high character kids.
Uh,
And
I've said this to people. He's the type of young man where if Talia brought him home, right, to have dinner
yep,
with you and your wife, when he left and it was just you and Talia talking, you would say, "I'm so proud of you."
yep,
That's the type of person he is.
yep.
He's it's a cliche, right? He's better as a person than he is as a player. He really is. Like Jeff, we had guys at our house because unfortunately I couldn't be at graduation. We had a death in our family. So we had the graduates over at our house. Our son is 12. Our daughter, I think at that time was 9. Maybe she had just turned 10.
Yeah.
And we got an unbelievable group of guys here, Jeff. Like they're literally at a breakfast table sitting with our 2 children.
Huh.
And they carried on the whole time. They're on a trampoline. They're playing wiffle ball. They're playing catch. And he's in it the whole time.
That's awesome.
You know,
That's
and our other guys were too. But, you know,
Yep.
again, you don't always have people like that around. And I'm thankful because our children look up to those guys so much. Like Jeff, if I had $1 for every time our daughter or our son says, "Dad, can we have the players over? Dad, when can Max come over again? Dad, when can Reem come back?" I could retire comfortably. But it's because how great they are
Hey,
to
they're
our
gonna have to drive to Austin next year to see Max.
Yeah.
They may miss one of your games. If there's a
Might.
choice, they
They
might miss
might.
one of your games to go see Max play.
They might. They love him. They love him that much. He's a great kid. And you know, obviously from a distance, we're hoping he does
Yeah.
great things there too, because he deserves everything. He's created all this. I mean, this is a kid, Jeff, that had one other Division I scholarship. And if I remember right, besides a military academy here and there, like that's it. So to put himself in this position 4 years later is a credit to who he is and his work ethic. It's also a credit to Coach Mills.
Yep.
You know, like Coach gave him a tremendous amount of freedom, and Max obviously took advantage of that freedom and created an opportunity for himself that, you know, honestly, Jeff, I hope leads him to living his dream of playing in the NBA. I really do.
Me too. Me too. All right, last question I have for you.
Okay.
What's going to change in this program now that you've taken over for Mills? You guys are different personalities.
Mhm.
Again, you grew up in different systems, Baylor and Texas, that were kind of, again, you were going against each other. What will you change? Like how do you put your imprint on this program? Because it has been something you've been a part of and been very successful the last few years.
You know, that's a great question. I think part of that's going to be determined as we go on, right? As I get to know new players better, as I get to see returning players and where they're at now as compared to where they were before. From a style of play standpoint, I really want to do a lot of the same things. Coach has a brilliant mind, not just a brilliant basketball mind, a brilliant mind. So I hope to be able to continue to organize practice near the level that he did. I don't know if I can get to the level he did. It was, Jeff, I'm telling you, the way you organized practice was amazing. And offensively, I love spreading the floor. And honestly, I love the freedom that he gave our players to play. I think he believed in, and Coach Barnes talked about this too. You want to teach guys how to play and then let them play. So I do want to continue that. Defensively, I would like to get a little more aggressive, and time will tell whether I'll be able to do that or not. That's just always how I like to play. And in this day and age, to be able to do that without fouling is critical. You know, the rules have changed where if you touch somebody, unfortunately, it's a foul. So there's a degree of, all right, what can you do without putting yourself at a disadvantage? But I'm hoping to learn a lot about that throughout our summer workouts where by the end we can determine, you know what, we can do this and that will be a change, or you know what, we got to take a step back because that's the other part. Maybe we have to do things where it's a little more pack oriented, you know, based on who we have and what we're capable of. But you know, Coach did an incredible job here, and I've always thought, you know, Coach Barnes talked about this: just keep it simple, and then allow those guys to be the best they can be. And that's what I want to do. I want to teach our guys how to play on both sides of the ball, and then I want to trust that they're going to do that with responsibility. And you know that's part of our job is to teach them how to do that. And so I do think we'll play with more intensity. At least that's the plan. And I think some guys have already felt that in the spring. But I mean, shoot, Coach did an incredible job, man. I mean, we went to a Sweet 16. We won 30 games last year, and it's like, man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So the model that he utilized was very successful, but I will have my personality imprinted. I just there's no way around that. We are different, but I think we're already moving in a positive direction.
Mills is a lot goofier. Mills is a lot goofier. That's what I'll say. All right, listen, I really appreciate it. Always good to talk to you. You know that. I
My
think
pleasure.
there were 59 new coaches, head coaches around the country. No disrespect to any of them, but I never smiled as much as when I heard that you got the head
I
coaching
appreciate
job
that, man.
at Oral Roberts. I mean
Thank
that sincerely. Again, we've known each other a long time, and yeah, I was worried about you. I was worried about you at one point, to be honest, and how you're going to handle being out of the business. And now to see head coach next to your name at a Division I school that fits you to a T. To be
I
honest,
appreciate that.
that's the beauty. Sometimes, again, this story, like you said, it's a chapter, and it's, you know what, if you are patient, you will be rewarded. You will be rewarded. And I'm sure you didn't know this, you didn't think it, but
Mhm.
this is a better job for you than Mississippi State was, because you, like you said, you didn't know if your marriage would last if you went to Starkville. You had no idea.
And I think I'll leave you with this, Jeff. Unfortunately, what I did was I put fear way in front of my faith. When things got hard for me, and really harder than I could have anticipated, um, I got anxious and nervous and scared. How am I going to take care of my family? What am I going to do now? This is all I've ever done. What can I do? And I wish I could go back and live that period of time differently. It was, I think it was roughly 8 weeks, even though it felt like 8 years. I wish I had just stood firmly in my faith, not for me, but for other people, right? Because I think that's something else that I'm unaware of at times, is how other people can be paying attention and you might be able to help somebody without even speaking to them. So to fast forward and to know what God did, the doors that He opened along this journey, really made me take a step backwards and truly believe with God anything is possible. I like Jeff, I have nothing to do with this. This is by God's timing and God's grace. So I'm really thankful, and I'm glad I'm at a place where I can be who I am. You get to openly talk about God here, and you don't have to apologize. You don't have to tiptoe around because you're at a public university. And that's part of the impact that I want to be able to make on young people, is to try to help them develop their relationship and to develop a relationship with the Lord, and then develop their faith. Um, so I couldn't be happier, man. I just, again, I'm amazed at how God works, and I'm thankful for everything that He's done.
Well, listen, again, congrats. I'll see you, I'm sure, on the road in July. And
Hey, man, we got to go to Cotton Patch for some sweet tea.
that's what it was. I couldn't remember the name. I couldn't remember. Is it still there? That's what I want to know.
Oh yeah,
Still there. All right, we're going to do it again, July 5th or 6th. That means you got to make sure you get to Peach Jam, like
I
Oral
know.
Roberts. It's not always, Texas, you had to go to Peach Jam. At Oral Roberts, it's a little bit different. You're recruiting, hey, instead of the Kevin Durant's of the world, you may be recruiting the guys that don't get off the bench at the Peach Jam.
Hey, man, but you just never know.
That's
There's
right.
always a guy
That's right.
who's good enough. You just never know.
No doubt. All right, we'll talk soon.
All right,
Congrats
thanks, Jeff.
again, and thanks for joining us off the carousel and Field of 68.
Our partner for today's episode is Athletic Greens. I started taking AG1 during the college basketball season, and I loved the impact that it had on my energy levels. I'm a big coffee in the morning guy, but by the time that the afternoon would hit, I needed another boost. AG1 helped me tremendously, especially on those days when I didn't want to get up off the couch and go hit the gym. Their tagline is AG1 is comprehensive health and the power of habit in one. And man, that could not be more true. It's nearly impossible to eat and drink in a healthy manner in the month of February and the month of March when you are in my business. And AG1 was exactly the supplement that I needed to improve my gut health and cover my nutritional basis for the day. I've continued that into April. I've continued that into May, and I'm going to continue that the rest of the summer. All I have to do is mix a scoop of AG1 with some water, or maybe add it into a smoothie, and I'm ready to go. Do it after lunch, and you'll be ready to go for the rest of the day. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/field68. That's field 68 FIELD, the number 6, the number 8, and you can get yours now. So check it out and help support this show. Thanks.